Hey, this is Troy Taylor with the Championship Football Coaches Clinic podcast, sponsored by Reps VR, First Down Playbook, Rack Coach, The Top Hopper, Sideline Design, Sports Workbook, and the Tip of the Spear. Today, we are not streaming live. Today, we got Coach Gerard Johnson, my quarterback from Meadowbrook High School, is coming on. And Gerard, you just want to start off with what you texted me today and what we were talking about.
Oh yeah. So like Coach Taylor said, Coach Gerard Johnson, at Caroline High School, been there going on about to be my third season. It's crazy how fast time has passed. I just got a notification actually for my anniversary, and I was laughing because this is the first time I've ever been at a job this long. Obviously because I've been playing football and stuff, but I've been enjoying this ride. But I reached out to you about some books. I wanted to get into reading more coaching books, or just trying to figure out what extra edge can I get. I also just wanted to get back to reading. So, it's hard for me to read stuff that I'm not interested in. So I was like, shoot, if I'm gonna read something that I can at least get something I can learn something from.
Yeah, so if you have any good recommendations for football books or coaching books,
Please
put
send
it
them
in the chat, and Gerard will check those out. But I just want to have Gerard on today. We just got back from the American Football Coaches Association convention, and there were so many coaches down there in Nashville. And I told Gerard, I'm not against reading, but not all learning is done in a book.
right.
So, what have you learned over your 3 years as a head coach, that you can't read in a book or there's no manual for?
I think really the main thing, or one of the main things, is learning your kids. I done read a bunch of leadership books. I did a leadership program, which was great. We had Coach Johnson from Highland Springs come over and do a leadership summit with our team. And I think that helped out a lot of guys. I've got a lot of young guys that have now basically grown with me in the program, that are benefiting from that leadership summit and some of the things that we do on a weekly basis. But I think mainly is, dealing with your kids and understanding. I heard, I forgot who it was earlier. I was looking at an interview, and it was talking about, treating every kid or all your kids is on a different day basis. So, for example, we treat every day differently, same way you do with your kids. You can't treat all your kids the same. You can't coach. Obviously, you can't coach them all up the same. It's different ways to coach them up. Some of them ways you have to coach up some of these kids nowadays. A book probably is not updated to this generation of kids. A lot of those books are from past times, and obviously, the foundation is there, but dealing with this generation of kids, not in a bad way, over time, everything's gonna change. So the same way our coaches may have said y'all generation is different than our generation, it's the same thing I hear myself saying now, being a young coach. But a lot of the stuff that I'm dealing with, or some of the things that I've had to do with some of my kids, I've never seen in a book. And I think some people have tried to warn me on it, but obviously, a lot of things come through experience. So a lot of knowledge come with experience. The more you do something, just like coaching, the more you do it, the better. Hopefully, the better you get if you're really investing into it. So I think one of the main things. Another thing I said, is the emotions of kids. We talk about just coaching them up, but learning these kids' emotions, how they respond to everything. Some of them respond differently than I would, and I have to be okay with that. I have to learn how to be empathetic towards that. I'm trying to get better with it, but it's still a growing thing. But I think those some of the main things that I couldn't learn in a book that I think I've learned over time.
Yeah, so I titled this Coaching, Teaching, and Learning, but this is just a talk between, a coach and another coach. And, I got a special relationship with Gerard because he was my quarterback at Meadowbrook High School, and he was nicknamed the General. And when I went down to the AFCA, man, I live a crazy life. And like I was sitting next to an old guy on a bench, and you just sit there and watch all these young coaches. And while they're shaking one guy's hand, they're looking around the room or around the lobby to see, who else might be there with a different logo on their shirt. It's kind of like going to a party and you're talking to a young lady, and you're busy looking around the party to see if there's any other girls there. And this old guy was sitting there, and I say, "Hey, how you doing?" And he introduced himself to me, and he said, "I'm just a high school coach from Chattanooga." And I said, "Okay." Well, I started talking to him, and I said, "Well, I'm getting ready to go meet up with Bill Best." And he said, "Well, is Bill giving a talk?" I said, "No, he's just down there at the Crowther exhibit, and he's just talking football." He was like, "Oh, I might get up with you." So I went down there, and I couldn't get in the room. And then finally, when we got into the convention center at the American Football Coach Association, I couldn't find Bill, but I saw Coach Prunty from Hampton. And he was sitting there talking to these three guys that don't look like Coach Prunty. They look more like me, and he's just pouring into them, and he's drawing stuff up about defense. So I walk over, and he stops. He acknowledges me. And I'm like, "Nah, Coach, keep going, keep going." So eventually they say, "Coach Punchy, you got to leave. You got to get out of the exhibit hall." So he goes outside, and he keeps coaching us. And, the last thing he said, and this was when he was coaching at Gretna High School.
Southwest Virginia.
Well, yeah, I mean, the middle of nowhere, Virginia. I mean, I don't know. It's where nowhere is, where it's near there. Well, he inherited a program that I think it lost 45 games in a row. And he went to all these different churches. And he even went to supposedly some churches that had KKK members, and basically said, like, they're going to make a movie about this guy one day. Like, I need your kids to play. So he got all these kids out to play. And, this is a story that pretty much he was a young coach. He said he was 25, and they had team meals. And these ladies that were from the good area of Gretna, they cooked these meals. The kids really didn't like them. So there was this older black lady, he told me, that didn't live in the nicest house, didn't drive the nicest car, but she agreed to do the team meals. So I think he told me that she made vegetable stew and pumpkin pie. Sweet potato pie. I'm sorry. I said the wrong thing. All right. That just shows who I am. All right. She made sweet potato pie and a vegetable stew. And he was like, "I don't know if they're going to eat it," but they did. And people complained. Parents complained that they didn't want their kids to be eating food from this lady that lived in a trailer and drove this car. And it just made me think about some of the people I've dealt with that have complained that they didn't want to eat food that another mom had prepared. And they went out there and they blew this team out. And after the game, he said he saw two people walking behind him, and it was the two ladies that cooked. And this is a key point, man. The old lady told him, she said, "You really like to coach, don't you?" And he was like, "Yes." And she was like, "Do you know why those boys ate all that food and y'all played this well?" And he was like, "Why?" He's like, "Because it was cooked with love. And if you coach with love," she said, "it'll be amazing the places that you will go."
Right.
And he got emotional telling us that. And I'm emotional even saying it.
Right.
Because it's true. And, the guy that you played for and was my mentor, Jimmy Rogers, he coached with love. And it won't always lovey-dovey, you're the greatest. Like, there's tough love. Yep. And when you love somebody, you want what's best for them. And it ain't always telling them, "Good job." So, what do you take from that story that I told you about coaching with love and like the lady cook with love?
I mean, I try my absolute hardest, um, to live by that creed, coaching with love. Everything I try to do, I try to at least do it with love, even though, sometimes our kids may not feel that way. But like I try to get them to understand, anybody who's willing to put or sacrifice time away from family for someone else, they have to have some type of love. Like you, at some point, the money is out the equation, because I mean, you can do a lot of things for a lot of money. So, coaching is one thing where you, even the ones who making good money, the more money you make in this business, obviously the more time you're going to have to put into it. And the more time you put into, the coaching aspect or the kids, the less time that your family might be getting. So for me, I try to get my kids to understand, this is always going to be out of love. Um, like I said this story before, never thought I'd be coaching, but a lot of times when I was thinking about what I was going to do after I finished playing, um, trying to figure out, I done tried everything. I thought about going into the military, I thought about driving trucks, whatever. But everything always resorted back to me wanting to help these kids out and being where I'm at. And I'm just like any other coach. I know that a bunch of us out there have kids that go through some things that, life might not have been hard. I mean, easy for us as coaches growing up. But some of these stories that I'm getting from my kids, man, it's crazy. I can't imagine going through some of the stuff that, some of my kids go through or have been through in in that short time of living. And for me, I just try to make sure that, sometimes these kids don't have, a father figure or just a male figure. I try, I'm close to their age. So, I know how that can be. That can be a little touchy, trying to be somebody, acting like you somebody's father or taking the place of somebody's father who may not be as present in their life or whatever. So I try to more so look at it as like I'm the uncle or the big brother, either one works for me. But I try to make sure that they feel that love. You never know. Like I said, these kids going through stuff that I couldn't imagine going through. I grew up with both my parents. We ain't had the most money, but my mom and dad did a great job of never making me feel like we were less fortunate than anybody else. I had exactly what I needed. May not got everything I wanted. So I try to get these kids and, put them in the perspective of the same thing. It's like, you going through this situation and you don't have to go through it alone. But you always gonna have the love and the support from me, because I know how important that was for me playing, how much, going to college, you're away from your family, you're away from your mom, dad, whoever raised you. And, sometimes you might need that person to lean on. I was reluctant to have great coaches at every level that I played football, going all the way from rec league, obviously high school. We was flooded with, great coaches. And I tell people all the time, people like, well, we were good in high school and this, but I'm looking at some of the talent that we were playing against or some of the talent that some of these teams have now. And I'm like, the reason why we were able to win or be so successful is because of love. And I don't know if I know you remember when Coach West did that video for us going into the playoffs our senior year. And Coach Rogers talked about that. You can, and he got emotional talking about it when he was talking about how Meadowbrook football taught him how to love. And I think that's the same thing. I learned how to love from my family, obviously how I was raised, but love in this sport or love outside of family sometimes is looked at differently. And I think that, having the coaches that I had prepared me a lot for this moment. I try to reach out to as many of them as possible, as often as, even if it's like once every 2 months, just try to, thank them for, helping pretty much raise me to be the coach that I am. I talk about Coach Scott all the time in college. College is rough. it's a rough time period for a lot of people's lives. You know, some kids, it's hard for them being away from their family, being away from home. You need that support to lean on. And Coach Scott was that guy for us at Norfolk State. Coach Hardesty, who was running back coach at South Carolina, one of the best in the business. He was like a big brother to me. Coach Z, who was at ODU, was good for us. Coach Burden was like one of my first guys that looked out for me at the college level, and then go from so far on. But like you said, that love in this sport and in this profession, it'll take you a long way. That I'm finding out just myself. I can't speak on everybody else's perspective, but love, when you coaching with love, you get these kids do whatever you want from them. You get them run through a brick wall. You get them do whatever you want for you, as long as they know that. And kids not dumb. So a lot of people think that, oh, these kids, they got this, that, and the third. They not that smart. These kids are very, very smart. They are very intelligent. They understand exactly who cares about them, who don't care. They know when it's real and when it's not. And I think my kids, for the most part, they get frustrated with me at times, and they get upset, but they know that regardless of anything that goes down, they know I'm always at their back.
Yeah, I mean, after we got the opportunity to see, Coach Prunty and hear that story, we start walking back, and all of a sudden I see Coach Brett Shockley and Bill Best, and I see the same guy who was sitting on the bench talking to Bill Best, the Colorado State coach, Brett Shockley, Ochita Baptist offensive line coach, and the assistant D-line coach at WVU. These guys knew him, and these guys coached against him, and they said he was a great coach. And I didn't even know who the guy was. Right. Nobody else was talking to him. So how you treat, I've been saying this, like everybody says, how you do one thing is how you do everything. Well, how you treat anyone is how you treat everyone. Like, are you only interested in somebody because they got a certain logo on their shirt? Or like another instance at the convention. Now I'm gonna keep talking about this because I want it to be documented. We walked around to all the different booths at Ian Tatum. I love you, man. That was a great story. I appreciate you putting that in the comments. We went to, some of these guys, the exhibits, the booths, they won't talk to you unless they think that you can help them. Right. You're a head coach or something. If I'm an assistant coach, then they ain't worried about assistant coaches. But there was this old man sitting there, and I asked him, I said, where'd you coach? And he said, I coached 45 years. I said, where'd you play? He said, Nebraska. Jeez. So I was like, oh, man. I was like, Tom. I said, you played for Tom Osborne? He said, yes. And I said, I love Tom Osborne. And I had this VHS tape of Tom Osborne, and he said he always used to pray before the games that God got the glory. And I don't know if I've always prayed it, but that's what I've kind of always thought, as a coach, that at the end of the day, win or lose, that the Lord should get the glory. And even though, I got let go or whatever you want to call it, we went 6-5. And I mean, I might get in trouble for this. I don't even care. We prayed 5 times in the middle of the field with the other team that beat us. And like, what's important? Like, man, that was important to me, and I'll hang my hat on that, and I'll roll like that because that's what I believe in. But the guy goes, I said, man, you were from Nebraska. I said, y'all were the best because of y'all strength program. And he was like, yeah. He was like Boyd Epley, who was the strength coach in Nebraska. He started Husker Power. I mean, dude, he is the reason lifting is important in football. He was at the other booth. The guy walked me over and introduced me to Boyd Epley. This guy was telling me about how Hammer Strength basically hustled their way into a Nebraska weight room and gave him an incline, which he didn't like. He chopped the seat off of the incline, and that's what created the Hammer Jammer, because he said he believed in ground-based. Everything should be done from your feet. And I was like, wow. Like, I mean, nobody was talking to this guy.
Right.
People didn't know that that guy's a living legend. He is the reason that Nebraska won, and he is the reason that lifting is so important in football. And he's coming on the podcast. He texted me. So, like, here's another thing that I kept saying at the convention. The people who are big time don't act big time. And the people who want to be big time, they try to act big time. It's like Coach Ball says, treat a rock star like a normal person, and treat a normal person like a rock star. So, like, from what I'm saying, what are you thinking, G? Like, from the information I'm dropping, like, I don't even know if you can read it in a book.
Like, that's important though. I mean, I grew up, my parents, my family, you never make somebody feel like, and my mom preached this a lot. And I get this a lot, a lot of people saying you need to take a little bit or give yourself a little bit more credit, for whatever accomplishments that I've had. And I tell them all the time, I'm a humble person, and anybody who knows me know I'm a very modest person when it comes to anything dealing with me. But I try to make sure that, when you're around me, whether that be family, whether that be, another coach, whether that be a player, anybody, I'm going to make you feel comfortable being around me. And whether that be you don't like me or not, we're going to be able to have a conversation. I'm not going to treat you any differently, no matter how, if you treat me a certain way, we probably won't be around too much. But, I try to treat people how, if I had a kid one day, how I want somebody to treat my child. So I try to, now that I'm getting a little bit older, obviously I'm not that old, but now that I'm getting a little bit older, a lot of things are starting to click with me now that, like how you're talking about a lot of guys, some people that are not big time try to act big time. And, I teach my kids the heart rate. So when you're in the hospital and you laying down and, they got all the cords and stuff hooked up to you, you're going to see this thing go like this. Beat, beat. And that's how you know you living. As soon as that line go like this, you done. So what that means is, what I'm teaching them is, you're going to have high days, you're going to have low days. It's going to be one moment when you're going to be up here in life, and it's going to be a moment where you may get fired from your job or let go, whatever. But I'll always remember that thing can go right back up. But when you up here, don't forget that thing can go right back down. So it teaches you humility. You want to be, you always, I tell them, be confident, but at the same time, understand that where you getting this from. All right. That person above, whoever you worship, whoever your higher power, if you have one, just remember that the same way it was given to you can be taken from you. So even when we talking about coaches, some coaches, I see it myself. Some coaches don't want to talk to younger coaches like myself, maybe because they feel like I haven't accomplished enough. And I've had coaches who won multiple state championships. I've talked to college coaches who, have accomplished a lot of things in that field, and they poured everything that I've asked. So it's like you said, not treating a regular person like a rock star, and treating a regular person like a rock star and treating a rock star like a regular person is I live by that because I see it all the time. But I also know how the same way how I got this is the same way it can be taken from me just that fast. So, like I like what he said about that. Coach Ball, shout out, that was a good quote right there. I might use that one.
He worked in hospitality. So like
yeah. So that when you work in hospitality, some people, they treat those people. And I grew up, my aunt, I got an aunt that she worked in hospitality for over 30 plus years, still do, I think. Got cousins who do it. So, I hate seeing people disrespect, you know, people who they may feel like is I don't want to say below them, but I hate seeing how people treat certain people that may not have accomplished the same things as you. Because at the end of the day, when we all leave this earth, we're going one or two places. And the same person, the same place where you acted this way, that person gonna be right there next to you.
You're gonna leave it the same way you came in.
Exactly.
Butt
So
naked and broke.
hey, you never seen a Brinks truck follow a hearse.
Nah. Ian Tatum, big time, and happened at the convention, but also there were so many that were gracious to me. I'm sure they were, Ian, because you're blessed everywhere you go.
I want to shout out Coach Tatum. You know, we don't talk probably as much as y'all talk, but you know, anytime I've asked him a question, you know, I shot him a question on Twitter. He responded. You know, everything was love. So much love to him.
Yeah, Ian is man. He's young. I mean, he's probably like your age. He maybe even be younger. And it's such a small world,
It's
Ian.
very small.
Yeah, because Brandon Toms, who coaches at Dinwiddie, you know, went to Gardner and Webb and knew you. So, I mean, and Coach Ball knew you before I knew you. And
That's crazy. I had a teammate who left Old Dominion that ended up going to Gardner Webb. So it could be some type of connection through that as well. But you know, football and coaching, football in general is it's a big space, but it's like everybody's so condensed in that space. Like you never know. I may know one person who's connected to 10 people. So now I remember one day I was in when I was at Norfolk State, and this may be a little bit, I ain't gonna go too much into detail, but I was looking at one of my coaches' screen. I was in the office for some reason. I was looking at my coach's screen, and it had, you know, I think it was something with his agent. And I was looking at all of the people that were under his agent. One of them was Nick Saban. One of them was what's the coach that used to be at Old Dominion that came after I left? That came from Vanderbilt. Oh man, I can't think his name.
Ricky Ronnie?
Huh?
The head coach at ODU?
No, it was a running back coach that came to ODU. He was a coach at Vanderbilt before
Banks?
he got. Yes, Bankins. That's what his name was. Yeah, so I seen his name and a couple other people under there, and I was like, "Dang, you connected to all these people just by your agent." And I was like, "Dang, that's a small world."
Yeah,
and there was some big time names on that list. I mean, obviously Nick Saban is Nick Saban, so, but it was a lot of big time names on there.
That's crazy. Like Taj Boyd was at the convention, and you know, Lambeau, he said that he started liking Clemson because of Taj Boyd.
And that's crazy.
Yeah, Taj, you know, walked by us, and I hollered at him, and I was like, "Hey man, I loved your high school coach, Bill D." And Taj was so cool, man. He took a picture with Lambeau, and he talked to us, and he said, "There's some people." How did he say it? That you try to remember, and there's some people that you'll never forget. And like, dude, Coach Bill D was that dude.
Legit.
And this is an old white guy, you know, not exactly skinny, that looked nothing like his players from New York, but his players loved him. And why is that? Was it because he loved them and his love was tough? But he said you always knew when coach got on you that there was a reason.
Always.
And there was always a reason. And like it was coming from a place that he wanted to get you better. So talk a little bit about Bill D.
I mean, shoot, I got stories for days for Coach D. And I just happened to be lucky enough to, you know, I played with a couple guys that actually played for him at ODU and Phoebus. When I was at ODU, I obviously played with Kobe Goodwin, Caleb Taylor, Paul Morant. I played with a couple guys that played for Coach D. So, you know, hearing their stories and having my own. But shoot, I also was roommates with, you know, Tyler Fisher, who was the offensive lineman from LC Bird, went to the private school up in Connecticut. He's actually now the academic advisor at UConn. But I remember just used to coming in the room some days, and as a player, when you did something wrong in practice or in the game, and when it's when you go back and look at that film, you're gonna get a talking to. And Coach D, I think we were playing. It was either a practice getting ready for that game or in the game. I forgot whatever it was, but Fish had missed a blitz. I guess he just didn't get the call or whatever. And he was like, man, I don't want to go watch film because I already know Coach D gonna get on me. But it was funny because when he got the film, Fish was thinking about this all day. When he got the film, Coach D ain't say nothing. So for the rest of the day after that, Fish was like, man, I'm nervous. He didn't even yell at me or nothing. The next practice, we was out there on the field. Man, I think he didn't get all Fish the whole day. And they got so bad, I felt bad for him. I was like, man, when we get back to the room, I'm going to talk to my boy because he might be about to quit. But Coach D was cool, man. Obviously, he used to was he the first person that from ODU that had our area? Was that Coach Coach Cotton? I can't remember one of them, but Coach D ended up being a recruiter in our area. And I remember him coming to sit in your office at Meadowbrook, and just hearing them talk. And I was a sponge. So any coach that came, I tried to stay out of class, not to be away from school, but I tried to stay out of class as long as I can just to hear y'all conversations. And Coach D that's a funny dude, man. He don't cut no corners. It don't matter who's around him. He's gonna be the same person every single time. And like you said, he was that tough love guy. When if you did something wrong, when he got on you, you did something wrong. So it's like it's no point of complaining or whatever because it's all on you. So he was a fair guy, and I tell my kids all the time. I try to take this from some of the coaches I had in the past, and it was like life might not be fair for everybody, but I'm gonna love everybody. So I'm gonna love all y'all, but everybody ain't gonna be treated the same way. And the as I got older, the more I understood that, being a coach is like, some guys just, may not have it, but some guys aren't there to be the starter. Some guys, I remember you used to tell us all the time, some guys are gonna be the guys that's gonna get ready for the game, and some guys are gonna be the guys that's getting those players ready for the play in the game.
All right. You're right.
Oh,
Coach Paul, can we get a Coach Rogers story?
Shoot, I got one. I got one. So we was on the tennis court. It was we was in summer workouts. And everybody who played at Meadowbrook during that time when I was there know this story. I ain't gonna tell a glass story because everybody know the chewing the glass. But we was on the tennis courts, and I think we were warming up and doing sprints and all that on the tennis court. And it had to be back during that time, it was just becoming a thing with the heat thing, but it hadn't fully converted to what it is now. But we were out there, and it had to be, even if it was 95 or 92 degrees, the tennis court where we were at Meadowbrook has no shade on it. So the sun is going to hit directly on it. And we were out there doing what we're doing. I think we're doing some sit-ups or something. Some we had to lay on our back. And some guys didn't have a shirt on, so they was running to the gate to go get their shirt that they took off, to lay on the ground and all that. And Coach Rogers going off like, "Oh, y'all so soft." And obviously, I'm just using the clean words, but he was going off, and he took his shirt off and laid on the concrete. On the tennis court. And I think he had did that for about 10 minutes. And when he got up, we was all looking like, man, he crazy. But when he got up, as he was walking out the gate, or when we was running out the gate to get in the weight room, he was like, that shit was hot though, fellas.
Yeah, he was the best.
Oh yeah, man. Coach Rogers was the real deal. I don't even know if people know how, how I met Coach Rogers. My mom and them was looking for firewood. And well, no, they seen a sign that was talking about cheap firewood for the fireplace. And my mom pulled over and she asked about it. And I guess she got to talking. She said, "Yeah, my son played football." I don't know how they got to talk about football. And I told him that I played at Beulah, and that's when he asked me to come out there and be the ball boy. This was Coach Bowles last year, so this is my 8th grade year. So I got to be the ball boy for 2 games for Meadowbrook, and Coach Rogers. I think from then on, I knew exactly what high school I wanted to go to. In that area, you can choose the your whatever school based off of the what's the thing they got, the
Specialty centers.
specialty centers. And I think right then and there, I knew what high school I was going to. Nobody offered that experience. I mean, obviously Petersburg was, one of those, obviously because of my family from there. But once he offered me to be the ball boy, that meant the absolute most to me. I was a little nervous to even walk in the gym when they was doing pregame warm up or pregame walkthrough. And I seen, shoot, at that time, that was Big Mo senior year, Tinsley senior year, Kobe was on that team. They had some studs on that team. And when I walked in the gym and I saw how big those dudes were, I'm like, there's no way in the world I can ever be able to play high school football with these dudes. But I didn't realize that obviously with time, you grow. But Coach Rogers was the man.
Yeah, I mean, remember when we went and seen him, man, right before he passed away?
Yeah, I was glad you told me to do that, man.
Yeah, well, I'm glad that someone told me. And man, I mean, you read a book and like, I mean, what do you really want to learn from the book? Like, sometimes I'd read a book and I'd be like, man, this book ain't no good. Why am I even reading it? And I'll stop reading it. Like, it's like, what if you read a book? What would you want to know?
That's a good question. For me,
like, what would you want to learn about by reading a book about football?
Me personally, I think, it's not even so much about the X's and O's for me because, I've learned more about just listening to coaches and pull stuff from them and, getting my own ideas. That's one thing that I will say that I've learned over time, and I was worried about when I first became a head coach, is I thought it was 1 or 2 ways to do this thing. When in actuality, it's a million ways to skin a cat in this business. It is. I've seen, obviously, and what's the coach that was at Presbyterian that was at the school in Tennessee that never punted and never kicked field goals? Some might say that that's one of the dumbest ideas in coaching. Some might say that's one of the most brilliant ways. I've seen a coach that, they get up by a certain amount of points, they not letting off the gas. I've seen coaches who, when they get up by a certain point, they're a little bit more respectful. And, I'm not saying one way is better than the other. I think it's situational, who your guys is. But I've learned, in this short time that I've been there, it's not so much of me trying to copy everybody else's. Now I'm trying to figure out how to put my own spin on something. I'm not trying to rewrite the wheel because at the end of the day, ball is going to be ball. It's either you score points or you stop somebody from scoring points. So it's only one outcome, and that's to win the game. So for me, it's trying to figure out what's my most comfortable or best way that I feel like I can do that. How can I prepare my kids? Because my kids are different than LC Bird kids. My kids are different than Highland Springs kids. My kids are different than King George kids. So what can I do for my kids to help them be successful? And for me, it's just trying to find those, not trying to copy, but it's me trying to find my own niche in this business. And I think I'm nowhere close to being who I know I can be in this business, but it's, I think the books were just me trying to find, different ways to help me skin the cat, not so much of looking to copy anybody else.
Yeah, I would start with the GOATs. I mean, the greatest of all time, man. I mean Saban and Belichick. I mean, both of them have books, and
Who
everybody's journey is different.
I've been listening to a lot of Mike Tomlin interviews, and like when he sits down and talk with people. I done listened to one of his interviews probably 3 times now, and is when he was talking about talking about leadership and listening, and how important it is as a leader to be able to listen. And I think a lot of coaches, get stuck in their ways and think that it's their way or the highway, which, I mean, at the end of the day, you being the head guy, I always believe in going down how I want things to go down. So I, not necessarily me not listening to nobody, but if I'm going to go down, I'm going to go down doing things how I want to do them, and, listening to my coaches and players and seeing what can we do to all make this thing go the right way. But, he talked about how important it is for, him to be a great listener. And it may be cliche, but it's something that a lot of people don't do. That's in leadership roles, whether that be coaching, whether that be being a principal, whether that be being a CEO of a Fortune 500 company. A lot of people in leadership roles don't like to listen. And, a lot of times the answers be right there when you listen. And I'm still learning, me being young, I sometimes I think us young coaches, we're afraid to, we want to win so bad that we don't want, somebody else to mess up our stuff. But at the end of the day, I learned this past season, me and my wife talk about this a lot. And I don't think I really told too many people about this, but this past season was rough for me. Not having anything to do with wins and losses, more so about, I feel like I put in so much work into this, what I do, that when everything don't line up how I wanted to, I get frustrated. And I think this year I got real frustrated, and a lot of that frustration led to me not having fun coaching. And I was just talking to my wife earlier today about this, where, out next year, my main focus, a lot of my focus is going to be on, having fun. Because football is, that's like my gateway away from, whatever's going on outside. So if my safe space ain't fun, then it's going to be tough. So, it's going to be, for me, it's about, having fun doing what I'm doing. On the same time, being in this leadership role, I got to make sure that I'm listening to the needs of my kids, and my coaches. Because at the end of the day, if these kids not put in a position to be successful on and off the field, and listening to what their needs are, every kid don't need the same thing. So every kid might not be struggling academically. Every kid might not be struggling with understanding the game plans, whatever. So me, I'm asking questions. What do you need help with? How can we help? If I tell them all the time, if I can't help, we're going to find somebody who can.
Yeah. I mean, listening is something that, most people, this comes from 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, or teens, or whatever version you want to look at. Most people don't listen to understand. They listen to respond.
Yep.
And most of the time, people just wait. Yeah. So they can talk again. I mean, you watch interviews, and they're not really listening, like, to what the person's saying, and like what they actually, I mean, I guess it's seeing things through different perspectives, kind of, but like that's what made me think about when you were talking about listening, is like not just leaders, but people don't know how to talk.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess we've gotten away from talking and listening. It's more of a text message thing.
Thing right there.
And that's a gift, man, to be able to talk and to listen and communicate. Great communicators. But then you started when you was talking about, I know you put on Twitter a couple weeks ago something about like, what if you can't get a kid to, do well academically? It made me think of Coach Wooden, who said when he was a high school coach in Indiana that some parents would get upset if the kid didn't make an A. And he said that not everybody's idea of success is the same, that some kids have to work hard just to make a C.
Right.
So like, Kenny Connor, one of the smartest football players I've ever had. I mean, he took 9 classes to pass 5 going into his senior year. And if that kid hadn't been eligible, I don't know if his life would have turned out to be the same. So like, what is doing good academically? Doing good academically for one kid might be being able to go to college. Another kid, it might be eligible. So like when you ask that question, like what were you thinking about? You know what I'm talking about, right? When you tweeted
that. And that's exactly what I was more so talking about is, I know that every kid is not going to be a great student, and that's just the way of life. Some people just not good at school, but those be some of the smartest people in the world.
Yes.
But mainly it's like you said, is the eligibility part. I want my kids and what I try to tell them is, the main thing is to graduate high school. We gonna do that. That's gonna be for sure. But I think that tweet more so was for a kid who wants to play at the next level. Trying to get guys that's not fully motivated in the classroom, but needs to understand the what's the lowest you can get to be eligible for the NCAA is a 2.3, and I that's a C average. So it's more so for those kids that want to play at the next level. And for me, I try to avoid. I try my hardest to put them in situations or try to help them out, because everybody's not built for that junior college route. Everybody's not built to withstand what you got to go through at the junior college level. Now, my mom, that wasn't an option for my mom. Not getting good grades was not an option in my household. However, I know that I wasn't perfect in school either. So my mom's main thing, or my parents' main thing for me was to make sure, all right, you might not be a 4.0 student, but can you be a 3.0? So I'm not asking you to be the absolute best. I just need you to be the best you. I need you to maximize what you can do. And so for me, it's trying to get my kids to maximize what they can do, whether that be a B average, whether that be C average, whatever it is, we have to try. I want to find a way to make sure that you don't put yourself in a position where you're not even helping yourself to achieve your goal, whether that be playing at the next level. Now, if it's to graduate high school and go on and, do whatever, whether that be go get your CDL, go to the military, it's a bunch of different ways out there to be successful. I want to make sure that whatever it is that you want to do, you're in that position when you leave high school to keep stepping towards that.
Yeah. And I mean, just thinking about, the kids I've coached, and I mean, heck, if you can't make a 2.3 in high school, you probably don't need to go to college, because I mean, like we used to say, there is no football without school,
right?
Unless you're playing on Sundays or you're playing at the adult rec league, semi-pro. There is no football. I mean, school and football go hand in hand. So, like you said, you never know when what kids have going on at home.
And that plays a big factor too. And I'm glad you said that because, just going on to, a separate thing. I get frustrated a lot of times when I see, coaches talk about certain kids or this kid is like for example, when I first got to Caroline, they was telling me about all these kids that was, oh, this gonna be a head case, this gonna be that, this, that, and the third. So, as I go on, I'm keeping these kids on my radar and, continually talking to them, checking in on them and all that stuff. And as I get to meet some of these kids that they said were the head cases, I'm like, man, they got a background or what they've gone through is the reason why they act like this. But nobody ever sit there and took the time to try to figure that out. And I think, me going to Meadowbrook and growing up, in Petersburg, I know that I've seen so many people come from so many backgrounds that were struggling. And, we had a lot of them on the team at Meadowbrook where they had this certain background, and it's the reason why they acted the way they acted. But if nobody had ever asked or nobody ever took the time to try to understand this kid, they may not ever change. And so I get frustrated when I hear people, I even hear teachers say, oh, this person, this, that, and the third. I'm like, have you asked or sit there and talk to them and ask why they act the way they act? Have you ever asked, like, how's your home situation? Not trying to get too personal, but have you tried to figure out, like, why do they do the things that they do? And I think us as coaches, sometimes we get away from that. We be like, oh, this kid is just, I don't want to have to deal with this kid. He's going to make my team do this, that, and the third, or he may be an influence on my team. But that might be the one person where if he can influence the team negatively, I guarantee if you get him going the other direction, he can influence the team positively. And I've had that situation. I've had the head case on my team end up being the leader of our team. And he's not the best student in the world, but this kid right now is making changes and, in other kids' lives, not only on the team, but in school. Now I have teachers coming up to me saying, oh, this kid is, his change has been incredible. And I was like, the main thing that I did when I first got here was what is this kid going through? And not throwing any names, but at one point, this kid was about to lose both parents during the football season. He ended up losing his dad after the football season. His mom had a situation going on, a sickness too. It's all kinds of things that this kid has been going through that nobody ever tried to figure out. They knew it, but they didn't try to ask him or try to pour into him. Maybe some kids just need somebody to tell them they love them. Some kids might just, hey, if you need anything, I got you. Some kids never heard that before. So and like I said, at Meadowbrook, we had a bunch of great coaches who, that taught to us. We had Coach E, who, he could relate to us at that because he was kind of close to our age and, he looked like some of us. We had Coach West, who was cool as I don't know what. We had so many, like, not just taking, obviously, coach, but talking about assistant coaches that were investing into the kids too. We got kids getting rides home. Coach Rogers gave kids jobs. Whatever. Coach Bland gave me my first job as a mentor in the summertime and helping kids study for SOLs and stuff. So, it's really about, if you about the kids, it's got to be about the kids. Yeah. And some people, it's about the kids until it's not.
Yeah. And it's a good point you made. Like, you don't have to be the head coach.
You don't.
Like, there's assistant coaches that have just as much of an impact as the head coach. But, everybody wants to be the head coach until they're the head coach.
Mm-hmm.
And, you can influence kids just as much as the head coach, if not more. Because when you become the head coach, when you become the head coach, there's a hierarchy.
Yeah.
And you're not as close to the players as the assistant coach. But it makes me think about why we coach. And, Mike Tyson, he had 200 felonies by the time that he was age of, I think, 13.
And Customato got him right.
Yeah, and I mean, there was a coach that changed his life forever, man. Customato, the greatest coach of all time. And I mean, some kids are easy to coach. Some coaches like kids that are easy to coach. But
the coach.
Yeah, and then I mean, but Saban said it, like when he went to the NFL, he had to, with the Cleveland Browns, like, you don't have a choice if you want to coach the guy or not. Like, dude, that corner's making more money than you. You better figure it out. And like, what are we coaching for? Are we coaching for the championships and the wins? Are we coaching to change lives? Like, were you said you were frustrated. Was it because you were frustrated by the outcome? Because if you focus on the outcome, we are going to be frustrated. I mean, there's only going to be one team happy at the end of the college or NFL season.
And I think, and when I say I was frustrated, I think I was more so frustrated for my kids. Being that I know exactly what they go through, I know how much, that feeling would give them a little bit more, satisfaction, or a little bit light in their lives. For me, I've been a player, so I didn't ever win a championship. Basketball, but at the high school and on, I've never won a championship, but I've won games. I've had game-winning touchdowns. I've had games when I done lost us. Maybe have lost us games. I remember in ODU, I fumbled on the one. I mean, when I was playing for Norfolk State, my first year at Norfolk State, we played against ODU, and I fumbled on the 1 yard line for the game-winning touchdown. So for me, I don't get any more. That's why I got into coaching. I don't get into. I'm not doing it for the satisfaction of myself. Obviously, we want to win. Like if you're a true competitor, you want to win. But winning is not as important to me, for me and my self-satisfaction, as it is to see my kids be able to enjoy that. And I think, Coach Harbaugh talked about this in his interview with ESPN. I was just looking at it earlier, and he said, think about how this championship feels for the kids, for my kids, for my family, that they have, a dad that they can go say that their dad won a championship, that his parents can say, I got another son who won a championship. For Blake Corum, who's the running back at Michigan, for his mom to say that her son had won a championship after he was having to drive 2 hours to school every day while he was at, I think, St. Francis, while other kids going through all this stuff. It's more so that, for them to get that satisfaction than for me. And like I said, I've been watching a lot of Coach Tomlin interviews, and I watched the one where him on the pivot. And you know how you said some coaches don't like to coach kids that they got to put a little bit more work into. Coach Tomlin said, I don't run from coaching.
Yeah.
I run to coaching.
Run to the roar.
Yeah. And for me, that's like, I've had to figure that out early. Being in Caroline, I got there to a program that hadn't had too much success in the years prior to me getting there. And I knew it was a task that, I had a long road ahead of me, still do. But, at the end of the day, we don't run from coaching over there. We don't have 15 coaches on the staff. We don't even have 80 kids in our. We had 80 kids working out, and some kids dropped off. We don't even have 80 kids in the program total. So we basically doing Ironman. We got 60, maybe 60 kids, 60 to 65 kids, 35 maybe on varsity, 35 on JV, with 6 total coaches in the program. So, we having to coach JV games on Wednesday nights and varsity game on Friday nights. But at the end of the day, like I tell my coaches all the time, I would do that before I just bring a bunch of guys around just to sit there. Mm-hmm. Because what are we teaching these kids? And my kids know that, at the end of the day, when they leave from here, even if you never won a championship, even if we never won another game, you're going to know how to work. You're going to know what it looked like every day to approach this and not complain about the circumstances that's been dealt to you. Like we talk about all the time. Hey, we dealt with those cards. We're gonna play that hand. You know, sometime in spades, you might have all spades in your hand. Sometime in spades, you might have all red cards and you might not get not one book. But at the end of the day, we still playing that hand. And we've adopted this motto at Caroline called Cav Row. You know, kind of a play on words from Death Row. And it's nothing to be negative about. It's about how Death Row approached business. You know, they didn't go in asking for nobody to do something for them. If they wanted to get something done, or if Suge Knight wanted to get something done, he went and got it done on his own. So that's what kind of we doing at Caroline. Is like we're not gonna have the most money. We may not have the best equipment, best practice field, whatever it is. But at the end of the day, whatever we gonna get is because we worked for it. We earned it.
And that's that work ethic.
It's got to be
shown to you by your parents or whoever it can be. And it has nothing to do with money in the bank. That's what Woody Hayes said. Like they asked him, they said, well, what did you think about, recruiting these kids from the inner city? Or he's like, a good family, it doesn't matter, whether they live in the nicest neighborhood or the best neighborhood. It has nothing to do with money. Love has nothing to do with money. It has to do with, how you were raised, how you were treated. And there's good families and good homes everywhere, even though, it might be in a bad neighborhood or not the nicest place. But man, that's why we coach. And man, that's why we do the podcast, to change lives, to help others, and to build champions, man.
And another thing I learned too, while we on this topic, I apologize if I'm going on. I had a lot on my brain today. But one thing I've learned being a young coach is, no matter age, how many years you've been in this thing, somebody can always either learn from me, and I can always learn from somebody else.
Oh yeah, you never stop learning.
Yeah, so I sometimes I talk to a little bit older coaches, and some people I get it all. Sometimes I get where some people don't want to take advice or listen to me talk because of how young I am in this. But at the end of the day, I had a coach at middle school, a basketball coach at middle school, Coach Charlie Scott, one of the best basketball coaches in the world. Coach Scott taught. I mean, he did this thing every day. I mean, every first practice. So I made the team my 7th and 8th grade year. And the first practice every day, I mean, every time we started the season, he went in the board, he drew up a small circle. And then he drew a big circle around it. The big circle was representing how much he did know about basketball. The small circle was about how much he did know about basketball. But he said in that small circle, the little bit that I do know, I know very well. And he said, I'm not going to coach you or tell you anything that I don't know. Said, but if it's inside this little circle, just know you might want to listen to me. And he'll let us know, hey, this is one of them little circle things. And that's when it's like, all right, I need to listen for real, because that's the part that he does, that he's admitting that he knows. But he was also the humility come back into play, understanding that I don't know everything. And I'm not going to sit here and act like I do. But as coaches, like you said, Bill Belichick is still learning football every day. Nick Saban is still learning something because the game evolves every single day. Kids evolve. The generations evolve. Those coaches like that, they've been coaching 4 and 5 generations. So imagine how many different generations and how different things have changed since Coach Saban was at Michigan State versus now at Alabama. Imagine how the players are different.
They say Vince Lombardi wouldn't be able to coach today. I don't agree with that.
Sure.
I think he would figure it out.
Yeah, just like any great coach, they figure it out.
Because he went from college to the NFL, and he had to change. They were like, dude, you can't do it this way. He listened to his players. His players told him that, and he changed. He changed how he did things.
And that's how you get that constant success, over years. That's how those coaches who win over and over, they can continue to win because they're continuing to grow. I can look at, and now that I'm, getting more into coaching, I look at the game from a different perspective. And, I looked at, this Alabama team from this year, and I remember looking at Alabama team when I was in high school and how different they look. And, the size and all that, people talk about the size. All the Alabama kids are, obviously they have a tremendous weight program and nutrition and all that stuff, but the teams look different. Now, the basics are still the same. Nick Saban, that physicality, that paying attention to detail, being disciplined, showing up every day, doing everything at the highest level. That's going to be the same thing. But each team looks different. And, the reason why it looks different is because Nick Saban has to continually grow. These coaches are continually, who are consistently successful in this business. One thing I'm noticing is, I go and look at all different teams. So I went back and looked at Ohio State when Eddie George was there. I went and looked at what was it, Tennessee, when they had the first black quarterback they had there. And you look how much this game is evolving. And it's like for coaches who have coached in that generation to now coaching in this generation, how are they being successful? Like you said, they continue to learn. Yeah, and that's being humble. That's being your humility kicking in, saying, you know what, I don't know everything. And in order for me to continue to be in this business, I got to continue to learn every year.
Yeah, man. Well, I'm glad you came on. We did over an hour. Can you think anything else you want to say?
I think to sum it up for me is, I want to connect with as many coaches as possible. Now I'm getting into the point where now I really just want to network as much as possible because, this is a fun business being a part of. And, I've enjoyed outside of, moments. I tell my kids, we don't have bad days. We have bad moments. So outside of the bad moments I've had, I've enjoyed this process, and I've enjoyed meeting some of the new people that I've met. I've talked to the Dudley offensive coordinator from Greensboro, and they're pretty good down there. I'm supposed to be going down there to sit down and talk some ball with him soon. I got a teammate that I played with at Norfolk State who's coaching in Georgia. So I told him that we had to get up and talk a little bit. But for me, I just anybody who's out there that who aren't too big time, that still talk to the small people. My Twitter is Coach. I hate using social media.
Coach Gerard G.
At Coach Gerard Johnson.
Yeah,
at Coach Gerard J. That's my Twitter.
I got it on the bottom of the screen.
Oh yeah. So yeah, anybody who who want to talk some ball, I'm always open to listen. I like learning, and I love football. So, and I think you can attest to that. I ain't always been perfect, but my love for this game has never changed.
Is that right?
Yep, that's right.
Coach Gerard J.
Yeah, that's it.
All right, y'all. So thank y'all for tuning in. We love you. We're going to press end here. Me and Gerard will stay on here and talk for a second. Thank y'all for tuning in.